The sandstorm rose without warning, a living wall of dust that swallowed the desert and turned noon into twilight. Lieutenant Mara Hale felt it before she saw it, the pressure shift, the sting on her skin. The way sound collapsed into a dull, anxious hush. At her side, the canine froze, ears pinned, muscles coiled. And then, against every order and instinct, the dog pulled forward, straight into the storm. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're re-watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Mara had learned long ago to trust two things in combat: the training etched into her bones and the instincts of a working dog when those instincts sharpened into certainty. Atlas Belgian, Malinois, sable coat, scar along his muzzle, had been her shadow for 3 tours. He didn't pull unless something was wrong. It's not wrong like an ambush. Wrong like a fracture in the world that demanded attention. The base behind them dissolved into silhouettes. Radio chatter crackled and died as the wind rose. Command's last words lingered in her mind. Hunker down, wait it out. But Atlas strained against the leash, nose lifted, eyes fixed on a point swallowed by dust. Whined once, low, urgent, the kind of sound that crawled under the skin. Mara hesitated. She thought of the rules she'd sworn to uphold, the responsibility stitched to her rank, the lives depending on her not to gamble. Then she thought of the last time she'd ignored Atlas. A man hadn't come home. "All right," she said into the storm, voice steady, though her heart was not. "Show me." They moved as one, bodies angled against the wind, steps measured. The storm pressed close, grain by grain, turning breath into effort and vision into guesswork. Sand found its way into seams and memories. Mara counted steps the way she counted heartbeats under fire. She tasted iron. Atlas led with confidence that felt almost human, cutting left where logic suggested right, pausing where there was nothing to see. Minutes stretched. Or maybe it was seconds. Time loosened its grip in the storm. Then Atlas stopped. He dug once, twice, pause, striking something solid beneath the skin of the desert. A faint sound threaded through the wind, a knock, a rattle, a plea so thin it could be imagined. Mara dropped to her knees, hands trembling as she scraped away sand. Metal emerged. A hatch. The kind used on older observation posts, long abandoned, erased from maps after budgets and priorities shifted. "Mara to base," she said, forcing calm into her voice as she keyed the radio. Static answered. She tried again. Nothing. Atlas barked once, sharp and commanding. She wrenched the hatch open. The darkness below exhaled heat and fear. A hand shot up, grasping air. Then a face, streaked with grime, eyes wild and wet with relief. A man hauled himself up with shaking limbs, followed by another, and another, for in total, all alive, dehydrated. All staring at Atlas as if he were a miracle-given fur. "They were going to seal it," one of them said, voice hoarse. "Storm protocol. We got separated." Mara swallowed. She knew the protocol. She'd helped write it. In certain zones, sealed shelters were marked expendable to prevent compromised positions. The moral math was brutal and necessary, except when it wasn't. She scanned the horizon, if you could call the whirling beige a horizon. No movement, no silhouettes, no enemy. Just a storm and a choice that had already been made for her. "Can you move?" she asked. They nodded, barely. She clipped Atlas's leash, looped it around her wrist, and stood. "Stay close. Don't let go of the line. If you fall, I fall." They moved like a fragile chain, bodies bound by trust and necessity. Atlas led again, navigating by something older than maps. The storm clawed at them, trying to tear them apart. Mara felt the weight of every life behind her, the ache in her calves, the doubt whispering that this was too much, too risky, too late. She thought of her father then, a quiet man who'd taught her how to listen to the world when it spoke softly. "Courage isn't loud," he'd said. "It's just stubborn." A shape loomed through the dust, a vehicle. Then another. Voices cut through the wind, disbelief and relief tangling together. Hands reached out. Someone laughed, short and breathless. Someone else cried without sound. When they stumbled back into the perimeter, the base went still. Word travels fast in places where routine is armor. Medics surged forward. Command staff emerged, eyes sharp with questions. Soldiers paused mid-task, watching the line of dust-caked figures escorted by a woman and her dog. Whispers rippled like a tide. They were gone, sealed. No way. Atlas sat when told, chest heaving, tongue lolling, eyes bright. Mara knelt beside him, pressing her forehead to his. Her hands shook now that it was over. She felt the weight of what she'd done settle into her bones. The debrief was quiet, heavy. Protocols were cited, risks enumerated. There was a moment thin as a blade when Mara wondered if this would be the end of her career. She met every gaze without flinching, answering questions with the truth and nothing else. I followed my K9, she said. He indicated survivors. A murmur moved through the room. The men they'd rescued sat along the wall, IVS taped to their arms, eyes fixed on the floor. One of them stood, unsteady but determined. With respect, he said, voice cracking. We're alive because she didn't follow the book. Silence stretched, then a nod, then another. Outside, the storm passed as abruptly as it had come. Sky washed clean, blue returning like forgiveness. The base exhaled. That night, Mara walked the perimeter with Atlas, the desert cooling around them. She replayed the day in fragments, the pull on the leash, the buried hatch, the moment of choice. She wondered how many decisions like that went unnoticed, how many instincts were ignored because fear wore the mask of discipline. Atlas stopped, lifted his head, and wagged his tail once, solemn and sure. Good work, she whispered. In the days that followed, the story spread, not embellished, not shouted, shared quietly between shifts, over coffee and checks of gear. A reminder passed hand to hand. The rescued men recovered. One wrote a letter to Mara's mother. Another trained harder than he ever had, grateful for the chance. Command updated the maps. On a morning washed in gold, the base gathered for a simple acknowledgement. No fanfare, no speeches, just a line of soldiers, a K9 sitting proud, and a lieutenant standing straight, eyes forward. Applause broke out, not loud, but full. The kind that lingers. Mara felt it then, not pride, exactly, but peace. Not knowledge that doing the right thing rarely feels right in the moment. It feels like sand in your teeth and doubt in your chest and a leash pulling you into the unknown. Because courage isn't about certainty, it's about listening when something true tugs you forward. And in the quiet that followed the storm, the desert remembered the footsteps of a woman and her dog, moving together toward what mattered, even when the world disappeared around them. If this story stayed with you, share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. And if you want more cinematic human stories like this, told softly and with care, subscribe to Whispered Words and walk these paths with us again.